You're probably struggling to pay rent this month, but there is a group of people making millions of dollars every single week without lifting a finger, the ultimate passive income. And they are completely, 100% dead. I have paid for Thriller 3 times in my life. Once on cassette, when I was a kid and the tape eventually unspooled inside a Sony Walkman. Once on CD in a mall for something like $18. And once more through streaming, drip by drip, fraction of a cent by fraction of a cent, every time I play Billie Jean while doing the dishes. Here's the part that took me embarrassingly long to notice. The 3rd time I paid, the man I was paying had already been dead for 6 years. And he didn't just collect my money, he collected everyone's. Michael Jackson died in June of 2009, and since that day, his estate has earned an estimated $3.5 billion. Not total career earnings, earnings after death. Last year alone, the estate pulled in around $105 million, which made him, for yet another year, the highest paid dead celebrity on the planet, according to Forbes. One estate lawyer described the rankings this way: it's Michael Jackson, then an enormous canyon, then everybody else. Forbes has been publishing this list for 25 years now, a literal annual ranking of dead people sorted by income. And once you understand how that list works, you understand something uncomfortable about how money actually works, and why most of us have been playing a completely different game than the people on it. So let's start with the machine itself. When Michael Jackson died, he was, by most accounts, in serious financial trouble. Hundreds of millions in debt. Neverland was slipping away. And then something strange happened. Death turned out to be the best financial decision his estate never made. The executors took his assets, his songs, his recordings, his name, his image, and ran them like a business. There is a Broadway production called MJ the Musical that has been bringing in tens of millions of dollars a year on its own. And in 2024, the estate sold half of his master recordings and publishing catalog to Sony for $600 million. Half of a dead man's song rights, $600 million. His mother actually opposed that sale in court, arguing it went against her son's wishes. The court let it proceed. The songs don't care either way. They just keep playing, and every play generates a payment, and every payment flows to whoever holds the rights. That phrase, whoever holds the rights, is the entire video, so let me slow down on it. What Michael Jackson's estate owns is something called posthumous intellectual property rights. When a person creates something, a song, a book, a character, a recording, the law treats that creation as property. In the United States, copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years, a duration locked in by the Copyright Term Extension Act of 1998, sometimes called the Sonny Bono Act, which extended copyright terms specifically to keep valuable catalogs out of the public domain. Read that again. Life plus 70 years. The legal system was explicitly designed so that a creation keeps generating money for decades after its creator is gone. A song written in 1982 can legally collect rent until sometime around the 22nd century. And a song collecting rent is not a metaphor. Every stream pays a royalty. Actually, it pays several. A single Billie Jean play on Spotify triggers at least 3 separate royalty payments. A mechanical royalty for the composition, a performance royalty for the master recording, and a public performance royalty that flows through organizations most people have never heard of. ASCAP, BMI, or SESAC. The performance rights organizations that act as a collection layer between every radio station, bar, and streaming platform and the people who own the songs. Every radio spin pays a royalty. Every movie that licenses the track, a sync license. Every commercial, every cover version. Every karaoke machine in every basement bar in Osaka. Payment, payment, payment. The asset works around the clock, in every time zone, forever, and it never asks for a raise. Elvis Presley is the proof of how durable this is. When Forbes published its very first dead celebrities list in 2001, Elvis was number 1. He has appeared on every single edition since, 25 years straight. And over that span, his estate has earned more than $1.2 billion. The man has now been dead longer than he was famous while alive, and Graceland still runs like a mid-sized corporation with a jumpsuit museum attached. Now, if this were only a story about 2 musicians, it would be a curiosity. It's not. The list is full of people you would never expect. Dr. Seuss died in 1991. In 2024, he earned $75 million. A children's author who wrote in anapestic tetrameter out-earned almost every living athlete you can name, on the strength of a cat in a hat and a grump who hates December. Charles Schulz, the creator of Peanuts, died in the year 2000 and still clears around $30 million a year, meaning a cartoon beagle sleeping on a doghouse roof produces more annual income than a team of cardiac surgeons. The writers might be the craziest category. J.R.R. Tolkien's estate sold Middle-earth Enterprises in a deal reported around $500 million. Netflix bought the Roald Dahl Story Company, the entity managing Charlie Matilda the BFG, for $684 million. Freddie Mercury died in 1991. In 2024, he was credited with roughly $250 million in earnings after Queen's catalog sold to Sony for a reported $1 billion. And Arnold Palmer, a golfer, has a drink named after him that generates around $300 million in revenue every single year. Iced tea and lemonade, that's the product. Half and half, in a can, out-earning tech startups. Even television finally joined. After Matthew Perry passed away, Forbes noted he became one of the rare TV actors ever to make the list. Because Friends still pays each main cast member an estimated $18 million a year in royalties. A sitcom that stopped filming in 2004. Reruns of people sitting on a couch, generating more annual income than most CEOs. Okay, pause the list for a second, because I want to talk to you directly. You watched all of those numbers go by, and if you're anything like me, some part of your brain filed them under fun trivia about famous people. I want you to unfile them, because the interesting question was never how much dead celebrities earn. The interesting question is why they can earn at all, and why you, who are alive, who work hard, who show up every day, would earn exactly $0 starting the moment you stopped showing up. Think about your own income for a second. If it stops the day you stop, then what you have is not really an asset. It's a treadmill with a paycheck attached. Every person on the Forbes dead list got there because at some point, alive, they converted their effort into something ownable. A song, a character, a brand, a recording, property. And property has a superpower that labor will never have. It can be paid without you being present. Present at the office, present in the studio, or present on Earth, apparently. That's the honest definition of passive income, stripped of all the internet guru glitter. Income from ownership rather than attendance. Which brings us to the strangest actors in this whole story, the buyers. Because someone is on the other side of these deals. Sony did not pay $1 billion for Queen's catalog out of nostalgia. Sony paid because Bohemian Rhapsody is functionally a bond. The song gets streamed hundreds of millions of times a year, every single year, with numbers so stable you can model them decades out. Old music is one of the most predictable cash flows on the planet. More predictable than most companies. Because a company can be disrupted, but nobody is disrupting the demand for Don't Stop Me Now at weddings. Streaming did something quietly historic here. It took songs that used to earn in unpredictable spikes, an album launch, a reissue, a movie sync, and turned them into annuities that pay every month, forever. Wall Street noticed. That's why catalogs from Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, and half the classic rock canon have sold for hundreds of millions apiece. And Sony isn't alone. Hypnosis Songs Fund, Primary Wave, Roundhill Music, and a rotating cast of private equity firms are now competing in an arms race to buy artist catalogs. Some paying catalog multiples of 20 or 30 times annual royalty yield to lock in what the finance industry has started calling recession-proof assets. The financial industry looked at posthumous intellectual property rights and saw what they actually are. The ultimate passive income instrument, with a customer base that renews itself every generation. Here's the detail in the Forbes reporting that I found genuinely revealing, though. The magazine points out that the celebrities on the list are the lucky ones, the estates where the family still controls the rights. Marilyn Monroe, Albert Einstein, Muhammad Ali. They've all dropped off the ranking because their rights were sold off to outside companies years ago. Same fame, same cultural footprint. Different owner, so the money flows to a licensing firm in a city those families have never visited. Fame was never the asset. Ownership was the asset. Fame was just the marketing. And that distinction is where this stops being celebrity trivia and starts being a mirror. Because the mechanism, own the thing, and the thing pays you, was never reserved for people with Grammys. A rental property collects rent whether the landlord is awake or not. An index fund pays dividends to accounts whose owners haven't logged in for years. There are famously piles of unclaimed dividends sitting at brokerages, quietly compounding for people who forgot they own them. A self-published book on Amazon Kindle Direct, a stock photo licensed on Shutterstock, a course on Teachable, a software tool. These are the civilian versions of a music catalog. Smaller canyon, same physics. None of them will ever generate Michael Jackson numbers. They don't need to. The estates on the Forbes list aren't remarkable because the checks are huge. They're remarkable because the checks don't require a heartbeat. Meanwhile, the machine keeps getting more efficient. There are now AI-generated duets with dead singers, hologram tours where the headliner has been gone for a decade, and entire funds whose only business is buying the rights of artists' estates and squeezing more distribution out of them. The 2025 list featured the notorious B.I.G., Miles Davis, and Jimmy Buffett. And Jimmy Buffett is instructive because most of his fortune wasn't even the music. It was Margaritaville, hotels, restaurants, retirement communities. The man turned one song from 1977 into a licensing empire, and that empire did not so much as flinch when he died. The brand was never him. The brand was the property. So the next time a headline tells you some dead celebrity earned $100 million, translate it properly. The person earned nothing. The person is gone. The property earned it. The copyrights, the trademarks, the recordings, the name and likeness. Assets built or bought decades ago, still clocking in every day without complaint. The dead aren't working. They just finished converting their work into ownership before they left, which turns out to be the only retirement plan with no end date. As for me, I checked my streaming history while writing this. Billie Jean, 41 plays this year, which means that across the cassette, the CD, and 4 decades of listening, I have now personally paid Michael Jackson more money after his death than before it. Somewhere, an estate accountant logged my fraction of a cent, added it to a $105 million pile, and moved on to the next line. 3 formats, 1 song, and the customer never once got to pay the actual artist. The rights got there first.